Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ultimate College Football News. This is your Week 1 schedule. You know, we've been waiting since the beginning of January for this week. Thursday is kickoff. So what do you say we get started, shall we? College football is back. You know, all the talks throughout the spring, all the interviews and press conferences during the summer, and here we are. Time to get your chin strap on, get your helmet on, buckle your shoulder pads. You know, there's going to be some hard hitting this fall. You know, this is... Every weekend should be like a holiday this year. You know, if you're not watching college football, what are you doing? You know, college football is a huge tradition across America on Saturdays. So here we go. Let's get started. Week 1, Thursday. North Carolina playing South Carolina. Florida International playing Central Florida. Oklahoma State will be playing Central Michigan. Elon will be playing Wake Forest. VMI will be playing Ball State. Stony Brook and Toledo. Alcorn State versus Georgia Tech. Villanova and UConn. Western Kentucky against Vanderbilt, Michigan and Utah. TCU and Minnesota. Ohio versus Idaho. Southern Utah versus Utah State. Duke versus Tulane. Texas San Antonio versus Arizona. UC Davis versus Nevada. Northern Illinois versus San Jose State. Abilene Christian versus Fresno State. And Colorado versus Hawaii. So, the SEC gets started right off the bat against South Carolina. Will be playing North Carolina. That should be a good football game. You know, one thing I noticed, the SEC usually tries and schedule tough. Vanderbilt, they're not that good of a team, yet they're going out and playing a big, small school. What I mean by that, a big team in a smaller conference. In Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky's a good small program. And Vanderbilt's playing them. So there's a tough team for Vanderbilt to beat. And then you got South Carolina and North Carolina. North Carolina's no cupcake if you're South Carolina. So tougher teams. You know, I was listening to the Paul Feinbaum show today. And this gal said that the tougher schedules are within the conference. I liked what she said. But the games I do want to watch, South Carolina and North Carolina. And then you got Utah and Michigan. That should be a good football game. If you're Michigan and if you're Utah. TCU and Minnesota. That's also a good game. Why should that be a good game? TCU is ranked so high in the nation. They're like a top 5 team. And Minnesota, here's why this is a good game. For TCU, you're playing a bowl eligible team pretty much. A team that's trying to have another 8-win season this year. And then if you're Minnesota, say you get an upset, you're playing a team that's one of the favorites to win the Big 12. That's a good game. You know, North Carolina should compete in their division. So should South Carolina. So that's a tough SEC matchup. Friday, couple more games. Georgia State and Charlotte. Michigan State versus Western Michigan. Fordham versus Army. Baylor versus SMU. Rhode Island versus Syracuse. Weber State versus Oregon State. Kent State versus Illinois. And the game that I want to watch, Washington versus Boise State. Boise State's in the Mountain West. I'm not saying they're going to roll over the Mountain West this year, but they're a tough team, especially playing against the Pac-12 team. That should be a decent matchup. Saturday. I got 2 pages worth for Saturday. I mean, I got 3 pages worth for my schedule. 2 for Saturday. So let's get started. Saturday afternoon, your 12 o'clock games. Louisiana Monroe at Georgia. Cupcake. Ole Miss against Tennessee Martin. The game that I'm watching Saturday, the early game, Stanford versus Northwestern. 2 top teams within their conferences. Should be a good matchup. Colgate and Navy, Norfolk State and Rutgers, South Dakota State and Kansas, Illinois State against Iowa, Richmond versus Maryland, Wofford versus Clemson. It's the 12:30 game. The 1 o'clock games, Youngstown State and Pitt, Maine and Boston College. Your 2 o'clock game, Portland and Washington State. Your 3 o'clock game, Old Dominion and Eastern Michigan. Your 1:30 games looks like this. You got Sam Houston and Texas Tech, Penn State and Temple, Wagner and Rice, Florida Atlantic and Tulsa, UTEP and Arkansas, Louisville and Auburn. That's the 1:30 matchup. Or that's the 3:30 matchup that I want to watch. It's Louisville and Auburn. Another good 3:30 game, Virginia and UCLA. And then you also got Morgan State and Air Force, Albany and Buffalo, Presbyterian against Miami at Ohio, Howard and Appalachian State. Your 4 o'clock games looks like this. Savannah State and Colorado State, North Dakota and Wyoming, Bowling Green and Tennessee, Southeast Missouri State against Missouri, and then you also got South Illinois and Indiana. And then your 5 o'clock game is Grambling at Cal. And then let's go into the prime time. Prime time, little Deion Sanders. A lot of games on the prime time. You know, I got another page full right here. So, here we go, shall we? Alright, so we got Bacon Cockman versus Miami at Florida. Troy at NC State. Towson at East Carolina. Gardner Webb in South Alabama. Mississippi Valley State against New Mexico. Alcorn in Oklahoma. Missouri State in Memphis. Florida A&M in South Florida. Alabama A&M in Cincinnati. Southern and Louisiana Tech. Jackson State, Middle Tennessee. Arizona State and Texas A&M. That's the 5 o'clock game that I want to watch. I know everybody's going to be focusing on a couple more games. The Arizona State and Texas A&M kind of caught my eye. Why does that catch my eye? The Pac-12 South is supposed to be one of the tougher divisions in college football this year, outside the SEC. You got Arizona State in that division. The best conference in all of football, Texas A&M. One team wins and rolls through their division versus the team that loses and also rolls through their division. We're talking a playoff team here. And they also make their conference look tough, too. Louisiana Lafayette versus Kentucky. South Dakota versus Kansas State. Texas and Notre Dame. Another primetime game that I want to watch. Notre Dame and Texas. I've never seen that matchup before. Two rich history programs. A lot of history involving those two schools. In terms of, I'm not saying as a rival, but they go back a long time in terms of who wins and who loses. So Texas and Notre Dame should be a good matchup. You learn a lot about those two schools and what they've gone through and how they've won. A lot of good players from the past came from those two schools. And you're finally putting those two schools together. That should be a good matchup. Georgia Southern and West Virginia, McNeese State and LSU, New Mexico State and Florida, UNLV and Northern Illinois, San Diego and San Diego State, Wisconsin and Alabama. You know everybody's going to want to watch that. Will Alabama finally go down in a non-conference game? Or will Wisconsin lose this game? It'll mean a lot in the playoffs, too. So I have Wisconsin competing for that division this year. Say Wisconsin wins, it'll look good for them to make the playoffs. So we have Wisconsin, Alabama. We got Texas State and Florida State, Eastern Washington and Oregon, Northern Iowa and Iowa State, Texas Tech and Houston. Should be a good matchup. And then Mississippi State and Southern Miss. And then you also have Arkansas State and USC. So a lot of games on the slate for Saturday. 2 pages worth. My goodness. And then for Sunday, you got Purdue and Marshall. You know, Purdue needs this win to keep the Big Ten on the up. Marshall needs this win for a small program, or a big program in a small conference, to do good this year. And then you also have Ohio State and Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech was the last team to beat Ohio State. Now Ohio State's going into Virginia Tech. That should be a dandy. That's a Monday night game. So, there you have it. That's every game for this week. Week 1 college football. Should be fun. Should be exciting to watch. That's your ultimate college football news. I'm Andrew Tanner saying goodbye and good night.